We're about to go 3 rounds to close out the show, and boy, am I ready to throw it down. Danny Bailey behind the glass. What do we have?
Former UFC champ Francis Ngannou gets his big money fight wishes granted this weekend as he steps into the squared circle against the Gypsy King Tyson Fury. Are you watching?
I'll watch two squirrels fight out on the sidewalk, Danny. I mean, if it's a fight, I'm gonna watch. We talked about before. I tuned in for the circus with Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul, so why wouldn't I watch this fight? Now, it is definitely a dream come true or a fulfillment of the movement that Francis wanted to be able to have. That was his big sticking point in the negotiations with the UFC and why he ultimately left, vacated his UFC heavyweight title, was that he wanted to be able to have that option to go box and to have one of those quote unquote big money fights. They've done a lot in terms of high dollar production for the promotion of this fight. Some of those commercials that they've done with both Francis and Tyson they're awesome. There was a Gymshark promo with Francis that was, I mean, it was staged, but it was a pseudo like real life sort of thing where Francis walked up to a gym, kind of pulled on it, and just shattered the doors completely. It's a fight that will be fun to watch and to see. However, when we're looking at just the draw power and the raw numbers side of things, I don't think that this is going to do anything in comparison to what the money fight between Mac was. That was Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor a few years ago. You were talking about the two biggest draws in each of their respective sports coming together at that point for that contest. One of the big issues with Francis that the UFC had and why they weren't willing to bend with their negotiations with him is Francis, for as explosive as he is, he's just not a big draw. He's not a big pay-per-view number guy. Francis is an extremely humble guy overall in terms of his media, his interviews. He isn't extremely boisterous and going against the grain to ruffle feathers. That's one thing that Conor did so well, and you had two of the top heels in both him and Floyd. They were both willing to play with that boundary, if you will, in terms of things that they said about their opponents all across the board, and especially as it related to each other. They did an entire worldwide press tour leading up to that matchup, which just simply amplified the prestige of the event itself. When we're looking at the actual X's and O's of this pugilistic contest, though, I don't see any route in which Francis Ngannou gets his hand raised against Gypsy King Tyson Fury. I mean, Tyson Fury is arguably the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. As big as he is, as fast as he is, and the power that he also brings in relation to his technical skill and his footwork, it's unmatched. When you're talking about a guy who is 6'9", nearly 300 pounds going in there, and he literally floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee, that's going to be an issue because Francis stands in there at 6'5". He'll probably be, he was always around that heavyweight limit in the UFC at the 265 mark. But, he might be a little bit more muscle up because he doesn't have to worry about the weight side of things as much with boxing. But I don't know what Francis is going to come into this fight in terms of his weight. Francis also wasn't the most technical boxer that we saw. Francis, a lot of times, especially you go back and you watch the Jairzinho Rosenstrike fight, he threw a lot of wild punches, and it was more or less through that 10-punch flurry. One of them landed and cracked him, and then another was able to basically put him away, but he kind of windmilled it in the process. I think that is his best shot. He has the quote-unquote puncher's chance, but when you're talking Tyson Fury, who was not able to be put away by the likes of the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder, who is arguably the greatest heavyweight knockout artist of the modern era, I just don't foresee Francis having any sort of measurable success against Tyson Fury in this fight this weekend.
UFC featherweight champion and lightweight title challenger Alexander Volkanovski said that he still plans on fighting Ilia Topuria, in January to defend his featherweight belt following the knockout loss last weekend. Is that a good idea in your opinion?
No, absolutely not. I think that that's too quick of a turnaround. I think that Volk needs to take some time to actually take care of his brain in this and let himself heal from it. No, he didn't get completely put out, but he did obviously get his bell rung. He got split open in a couple of places in the process. He did mention in his post-fight press conference, and it was a real tearjerker, talking about the mental struggles that he had while not being in a fight camp. If we know one thing about Volk, ever since he's been in the UFC, and especially since he's been champion, he's been active. He has fought some of the highest of high competitions at the most frequent basis of anybody out there. And for him, and it's true for a lot of fighters out there, that when you don't have that target, when you don't have that goal, when you don't have something in front of you that you're working for and training toward, even when everything else in life is seemingly great or nearly perfect, he's already got money that is going to secure generations down the line for his posterity. He has a wife and two beautiful kids. But without him having that direction or that intent with his training, he said that he was kind of lost, and he needed to be able to have something in that mix. And that, yes, this Islam fight was great for the money, but he needed to have that target to give him purpose again. And I understand that aspect, but I also feel like, and if we're looking at his overall longevity and his health, it needs to take a little bit of time, because a punishing power puncher the way that Ilia Topuria is, that's a problem if you don't take enough time to heal that brain after the trauma that he sustained this last Saturday.
Free agent Michael Venom Page was present in Abu Dhabi this last weekend, and UFC President Dana White revealed that there is mutual interest. Are you interested in seeing the 36-year-old MVP in the UFC?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing MVP there. A few years ago, it would have been a definitive no for me, just because he was known as a can crusher over in Bellator. But throughout the last few years, he's gone out there and he's fought much higher competition in the welterweight ranks before he fought out his contract with that last fight against Kota Yamaguchi, where he completely destroyed his knee with a single kick. He also had that bare-knuckle boxing match with Mike Perry, and Mike Perry beat him. I think that surprised a lot of people in that contest, that Mike Perry was able to have that much success against a striker like MVP. But it's also, when you look at that fight, a lot of MVP's striking game is based upon him being able to kick. I do think that there are some exciting matchups for him in the UFC. I don't foresee him having a title run by any means in him, but I do see some exciting high draw type of fights. One of them being, man, I would love to watch MVP fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Take my money. That's a fight that you could headline a card immediately as soon as he comes into the UFC, just based off of each of their striking prowess. I would love to see it. I think that Kevin Holland is also going to be an interesting fight for him that would be out there. That's something that I would imagine that is an interest of a lot of UFC fans out there. Again, don't see him making a title run, but are there a couple of really exciting and entertaining fights that could be presented for MVP? 100%.
Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. That helps us continue to produce this original MMA content and bring it for you every single week. Tune in to the MMA Plug presented by
Fan Cave
on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio.